Hey everybody, we're back at the Unsolicited Advice channel. So this channel is really good to watch. I like how he breaks down basically the thesis that Nietzsche was trying to get across. Nietzsche had some things to say about Christianity, and this really applies to dog culture. So have a look at this with me and tell me what you think.
Morality. 3. The moral myth. There are few philosophical debates that have as much relevance to our everyday lives as those of ethics, the study of what is right and what is wrong. And for a long time, this issue was inexorably tied up with the question of God. What was right and wrong was seen as directly related to God's will, and apart from a few dissenters.
So already this is starting to sound like dog culture. What is right and wrong is connected to, were your actions doing something to please a dog, or were your actions doing something to please your child or your father or your mother? Right now, our society worships dogs, that dogs are allowed to get away with murder, dog owners can get away with murder, and doing something for your dog, even up to the point of allowing your arm to be removed by your dog and then still praising your dog. So much of our morality is tied to, are your actions good for a dog? And as I'll show you guys, Nietzsche had a problem with this when it came to Christianity, this rigid way of thinking.
Theology was considered a vital component of philosophical ethics. We still see the echoes of this today. Much of the dominant moral system of both Europe and America is directly inherited from certain strains of Christian ethics. But by Nietzsche's time, there was change.
And much of our moral system in America comes from the worship of dogs.
On the wind. The question of values was becoming unstuck from the question of God. People were beginning to propose secular theories for what was right and wrong, and this opened up a whole world of possibilities for what the new values of society should be. This is partly what Nietzsche meant by his famous phrase, "God is dead and we have killed him." The old
And what if we take that phrase and say, dog worship is dead and we killed it? If we kill dog worship in the way that Nietzsche said we should kill God, well, a lot of people would be alive. A lot of our expenses could go to our fellow humans instead of to freeloading dogs. And Nietzsche wasn't like necessarily attacking Christianity directly, but he was attacking it how it had to be rigidly connected to God's will. And right now we connect so much of our actions every day to the will of some doofy dog that's running around our house.
Foundation for values has been broken, and we now must ask, what shall we put in its place?
But sadly, what we put in its place was the worship of dogs. We have been phasing out Christianity. Christians have been under attack. The people that actually look at the Bible from an open perspective, those people are under attack, and we've replaced that with the worship of dogs.
And in characteristic Nietzschean fashion, he immediately criticizes the ethical system we have inherited from Christianity as nonsense, suggesting we make a clean break from it. In Nietzsche's view, the virtues that the Christian tradition has given us, the equality of man, the value of pity, the submission to a superior power, are all poisons to the spirit of mankind.
Notice what he mentions right there. Pity. The value of pity. Pity is what we do with our dogs. We're constantly like, oh, I gotta save him. Oh, the poor rescue dog. Oh, he doesn't know any better. Oh, he's so trustworthy. We have this huge thing pitying our dogs. And Nietzsche talked about that.
Nietzsche criticizes Christianity.
Another thing that he said is Nietzsche had this idea of a clean break from the rigid values of Christianity. But we didn't really cleanly break from it. We are slowly diffusing Christianity with a worship of dogs.
Christianity from many angles throughout his works, but in Twilight of the Idols he synthesizes them all into a key point. He says Christian ethics suppresses our natural potential. As I mentioned before, Nietzsche has a lot of reverence for
Christian ethics, he says, suppresses our natural potential. Well, dog ownership suppresses our natural potential. We replace our family members, we replace our kids, our husbands and wives with dogs, and we don't get to live our full potential. We just live a life of worshiping a dog, going broke for a dog. And look at all these stories of people that their dog amputates their own arm and they keep the dog. It's crazy.
Human instinct. That is, our passionate, primal desires that are often condemned by philosophers. He directly criticizes the idea put forward by Christ on the Sermon of the Mount that if someone's eye is leading them to sin, they should pluck it out. For Nietzsche, to do such a thing is to reject the instincts that have such potential to bring us joy. The suppression of these primal components of human nature may do many things: protect the weak from the strong, stop society from collapsing, and even save us from a lot of suffering.
And that's what dog owners do. Oh, I don't want to bother with a girlfriend. I'll just get a dog. That's easier. I can control a dog. Our women, they always get dogs, big, huge, giant dogs, and then they have simp, just pushover boyfriends, and all that does is suppress their natural instincts to be with each other.
For Nietzsche, this comes at the cost of cutting off a key part of what makes us human. And in his opinion, we must recognize this fact head on, rather than pretend that moral systems don't come with any kind of price. So far, this is pretty standard for Nietzsche, but there is both Twilight of the Idols and the Antichrist, one that I think is both subtle and sophisticated, that to propose a universal moral system is to construct an ideal world, and so cut us off from the material reality that is in front of us. While he would probably not like me calling him this, Nietzsche is in many ways a deeply analytical thinker, and so he looks around at the world and notices that there simply aren't any moral facts to be found. At the scene of a murder, where is this property of wrongness that we can pick up and examine? For him, morality is obviously not of the material world, so it must be some sort of human construction that we place on top of it. And he infers from this that morality is a delusion, preventing us from engaging with the real world in a wholehearted way.
In my view of what he's saying there, when morality is linked rigidly to dog ownership, then we cannot have any type of human morals because it's rigid. It's like, well, a dog killed a toddler, so we're going to just worry about what triggered the dog. We're not going to look at it from any kind of wide angle.
In fact, he sees it as almost an exercise in intellectual arrogance to make objective moral judgments. After all, in his view, there is nothing in the world to justify these grand pronouncements. They are just spectres we've created. A school of philosophers discussing what is morally right and wrong.
When he talks about the specters that we create, this reminds me of when a toddler is killed by a dog, a UPS driver is maimed or mauled by a dog. Everybody sits around. The YouTube channels, the dog worshippers, the police, the Humane Society, they sit around like philosophers, like he mentions, and they talk about, well, the breeding of the dog, or perhaps the dog was triggered. Perhaps the fireworks are the lightning. Perhaps the doorbell rang too loud, and that is why the dog killed the young gentleman. Boop-de-doop-de-doo. They sit around and philosophize in this narrow way of trying to figure out the morality of what happened right then at the moment when the dog did anything. Started a house fire by sniffing the toaster like beagles do. All of this stuff, they have this little philosophy of sitting around trying to figure out what could have these bad humans done to trigger and abuse this dog to make him kill something, instead of looking at the wide view of the thing is a freaking fanged predator with a lemon brain that is designed to kill you.
Is like a group of teenagers telling one another ghost stories round a campfire. In each case, they're simply discussing phantoms with no relevance to this world.
Exactly. The people sitting around the campfire, the kids telling ghost stories. It's just like when a pit bull attack happens and they have 5 people on the news story talking about, we're going to investigate it. We're going to get the sheriff on here, the mayor. They're going to look at this dog. They're going to quarantine him. It's a pit bull. It's an Eskimo dog, a husky. We're gonna figure out why it could have killed somebody. And yet these dogs have killed for generations and generations. And so yeah, it's like what he's talking about with the philosophers. They just love to sit around and philosophize about specters. But really, they're just a bunch of idiots around the campfire, like this little story says right here. So that has been a look at a dissection of the moral myth from Nietzsche. And this really, really applies to dog culture. Like, once you see the pattern of how dog culture acts like a replacement religion, the way that dog culture, the way that so-called Christians will not really follow the morals of the Bible, they will start following the morals of dog worship. This stuff really makes sense once you start seeing this pattern. And Hope you guys liked the video. Hope you get a chance to check out this channel, Unsolicited Advice, and see you guys in the next one.